The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome Laurie Ortelano from running for the commission, Public Works Commission. You're going to be one of the 5 people that help the Public Works get through some of their problems.
Yes.
A budget and everything, and
Yes.
that's be good. So why'd you decide to run for that office after you're doing all the work on assessment and everything that helped us out?
Well, my assessment work continues.
Yeah.
I did a lot of abatements this year for people, well over 100 to try.
Really?
Yeah, I did 100 abatements, and people, most of them were awarded, I think all but 2, and people got back in excess of $200,000.
No kidding.
So it went pretty well for people who I kind of identified properties, particularly sold properties that were overassessed. And knew how to apply that ratio and what the ratio was and how to compare them to sales data. And I was able to pick off about 100 properties. I really didn't have enough time to do a lot of more work that could have been done. But, and Laura Calhoun helped me a little bit, this other lady who's been actively involved. And we ended up getting like 120 of them done and out to people in about 5 weeks. And so if we had more time, we could have done more. So we did that. And Public Works, I thought about running in the Alderman chamber, but I've been a little bit of a, contentious person in the eyes of the city, and I didn't have a lot of friendly faces in the chamber. So I didn't feel like I could be as successful over there as I would want to be. I didn't want to constantly be under attack because I didn't think it would look good for the city or me. But Public Works is a small board of only 5 instead of 15. And there are 2 women on it right now, Tracy Pappas and Shannon Shoneman. Both of them are very respectful to me. I like the work they do. I like the way they question what's going on in the department. And so I felt that if I could get elected over there, I would be sitting among colleagues who would, that we would work together cooperatively. Okay. You have a Democrat there, you have a Republican there. I'm sort of a moderate in between, and I think, you know what? It's good to show that there's all kinds of good relationships that can be struck independent of party.
And you're an engineer too.
Yes.
So that, what field, what engineering?
Mechanical.
Oh, well, that ought to help out with a lot of things.
I did mechanical engineering, and I got my degree from WPI. And I worked on the building project when I was in Litchfield, and we built a new high school. Oh. And so I thought, you know what? It's a good fit for me over there. And I think that we could do a good job questioning projects and looking closely at contracts and spending. And there's a lot of big, DPW is a pretty big budget and a lot of contracts over there.
Definitely.
A lot of, heavy equipment contracts. You got parks and recs, you got roads, you got sewer, you got water, some of your infrastructure issues. So paving projects, there's a lot of money spent over there. And, so I feel like it would be a good place. And then also that board would be focused on, Public Works. But when we do the reassessment next year and the new numbers come out, I anticipate a lot of people to be very sensitive and pretty reactive about what they see in their new assessments. Oh. They're going to be very high, and it's going to change dramatically. And the mayor has already indicated that he thinks that there is going to be a shift. Instead of the 50-50 split that you see between commercial and residential, it's going to go heavier on residential. So there's going to be an increase that comes onto the residential side. So I think I'll get plenty of calls. And I feel as though I won't be in conflict to assist people in assessing and doing my DPW work. Yeah. Whereas maybe being an alderman that has oversight of all those departments, some people would feel that it was a conflict for me to assist people. So I think it's a good fit, and I feel like I could make a contribution there without having too much controversy.
Well, that's good. I hope that's that department has been fairly well run, as I understand it.
Yes.
And it's a little different from the rest because they have their own pension system, I hear.
They do.
And
They
it
do.
has been very good.
They have done a really good job with their pension system, and I sometimes wonder why we can't take a page out of that book.
Right.
You know, where it's self-funded, and the yearly return on that pension system has been really high, and the state system is really low.
Yeah.
So, and we have to funnel so much money into it. Now, I talked to one city official who seemed to indicate to me, and I couldn't verify it, that they thought it was the law that you can't switch your pension system over now. That
No, it's not a law.
Okay, so that's what they kind of said to me, but it seems to me it would be a good idea, and I know Commissioner Pappas has addressed this, that all new hires go into a self-funded system. Start creating the self-funded system that they have at DPW.
Sure.
Because they have their board, they have their retirement system trustees, they meet all the time. The treasurer's on that. It's been very well managed. It's been around for many, many years, decades. And like I said, the return is very good. So.
Well, I think the mayor who complains about the fact the way the pension system is for everybody else, I think should look into it.
Definitely.
I mean, it sounds like you got a winner there.
We do.
And the only thing they have to do is when they go from one system to the other, there is a law that you have to have everybody that's under the law to be under there to be able to continue what they've been promised while you're switching to the different type.
Okay.
And that you know, I had people tell me you could actually form get some kind of a loan or something like that that would cover that transition.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it should be explored and discussed because it's such a big issue and it's such a costly
I
issue
think
for the city.
everybody agrees that the way it was set up with the state running the actual investment and the different entities actually handling what benefits was set up.
Right.
You can't do that.
No, it hasn't worked well at all.
No. And they want to get out, but that was one thing when I was up in the Concord for the 4 terms that I could never understand why they always had a committee going into looking at it and never coming up with a solution.
Right.
Over 8 years.
Yeah, that's a long time to not be too productive.
I think nobody wanted to make the hard choice of how do you cover the transition.
Right. Right. It's a sensitive issue, too, among every employee.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I don't blame them.
I don't either. Because you see what happens when systems are raided, pension systems, municipalities fold. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's super scary when that's your retirement and that's what you depend on. So it has to be very responsibly managed and thought through. But we should be having those discussions and looking at it because we have a model right here that's been so successful. It's there.
Well, I agree, and maybe you can get it out now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be, yes, you're right.
When you get elected, you have to come back and talk about it on the show.
I'll definitely do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, what do you think about the commissioner in the police department now? That's been a local issue.
It certainly has been a local issue. So I think it all could have been handled a little better. Okay, it's gotten very messy and very confrontational for reasons I don't fully understand. I think that there's always this element, and I find it true with this mayor, that there's this hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We got to go, go, go. And this issue regarding the commission, which has been running a certain way for quite a period of time with the governor appointing the commissioners through the executive council, I don't understand what's driving the need for the change right now. I'm not opposed to a charter change if it's vetted well, and I think forming a working group committee is a good idea. And I don't understand why the mayor wouldn't support that, why he wouldn't support the working group committee or participate in it, why he felt that when the board said we don't want to proceed and move forward on this charter change right now, we want to study it. He said, I'm going out on my own and I'm going to draft this petition and give it to a citizen to send up to the state, and off we go running. We're going to try and get the 1,500
I've talked
signatures.
to several people who signed the petition because they really didn't understand it. They thought, why not?
Well, it concerns me a little bit because people say, what are you afraid of? It's a charter change. The law allows somebody to do this. I said, well, I'll give you an example. I went to the board 18 months ago and I said, would you consider a charter change for the Board of Assessors? There's only 3, but right now it's the only appointed board that you don't have to be a resident of the city to be on. So we have somebody who does all the property assessments who lives in Manchester and doesn't own property in Nashua. And I actually think you should be a property owner in Nashua.
Okay.
We've got 90,000 people now. This was set up 100 years ago too. Let's put the 3 people as people in Nashua.
Sure.
They would not consider it. They didn't even acknowledge it. That's okay. It was their choice. But that would be like then me going out as a citizen saying, I'm going to get these petitions signed and I'm going to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And I would have every right to do that. But when it's your mayor, who's an elected official, who's a figurehead, who's a leader in the city, who breaks from his board and the board itself fractures, and then he becomes the voice of this petition, he carries a certain amount of authority and in a matter that when he presents it, people believe that it's already been vetted, it's been discussed, it's been taken care of because he is the leader of the city.
Right.
And it sends a very different message. And I think it's mishandling his power and his authority to be the leader on a petition like this. He should have worked with his board in the chamber and should have allowed this to have extra time to be vetted, because he wants local control, and his idea of local control is let me, the mayor, and the board president nominate the candidates and present them to the board, whatever candidate it is. Well, what's the matter with local control where the public actually votes it?
Yeah.
How did he determine that that choice wasn't the best choice for Nashua? Him appointing was.
When the other 2 groups that have a commission that's elected.
Yes. And then he started rattling off communities that had changed when he was talking in board meetings. And it got me doing my little bit of research. I called the top 10 municipalities in the state the largest. Turns out 5 of them don't have commissions at all. The 3 of them have commissions that are voted by the public at the polls in staggering terms.
Right.
Nashua is obviously in its own category with the governor appointing. And the only other one that has the mayor appointing is Manchester, but their commission is advisory only. They don't have executive or financial duties or real oversight of the department. So now this week I called 3 more smaller communities, and the size of the communities in New Hampshire changes dramatically. You look at Manchester, Nashua, and all of a sudden you go from 120 to 90 down to like
5,000.
30 next, big drop. And then by number 10 it's like 10,000.
Yeah.
So the spread is 120 to 10,000 in the top 10. Big difference. But go down to the ones around 15,000, and I called 3 of them. They're all voted by the public.
Yeah.
So I want to understand why that option wasn't given to us. I would like to understand why, when the whole thing was considered, the police weren't called or the commissioners to have a conversation by our political leaders to say, we're considering this. They learned about it when they saw a poll put out on the mayor's Facebook page asking how you feel about changing it. That's a little bit of a slap in the face, right? That's not good, political camaraderie. It's not really the way you should do it.
It's typical.
It is typical. You're right. And it needs to change. So, it ruffles feathers. Yeah.
Did anybody bring up the issue of why a governor ever got involved with it? Do they know the story?
Yes, and that's been addressed many times at the microphone, that there's a history of corruption here.
Right.
That and back 100+ years ago, that corruption was there, which is why the state took over. And then subsequently, from that time, there's been other issues in this city with things not going quite the way they should have, and having this more politically removed appointment system was actually better for Nashua. So yes, that has been detailed quite a lot.
Okay.
And
Because I've seen nothing in any news.
not in the papers or anything.
No.
You're right. And the Telegraph ran a big story over the weekend, but it was really a whole story about Jim Donchis' position. It really didn't give the other side. Now, I don't know if they're going to come out with an article on the other side, but I would say it was not a split story. Now, it's okay that it was all his side, because people, if you're at all inquiring, you're going to ask a lot of questions of whys. Why is this the proper method? And newspapers create stories in certain formats too.
Well, I always thought that Donchis has had a good connection with the newspapers. He always gets his picture in the paper. He always gets the stories. And
he generally does, but the media source has changed so much, because the Telegraph is down to 2 reporters, paper printed once a week, digital only, and the Union Leader changed a lot too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So sadly, print media has changed.
Right.
And I think it's hurt a lot of older people who really liked having print media and used it. They're not on social media.
Definitely.
And it's definitely not my recommendation to dive into that. It's a tough arena. It's not the same type of news arena. You really almost have to order digital papers through your iPad or something, get a cross-section of news from larger regional papers, and study those.
Oh, yeah.
That has to be your education source now. But locally, it's tough. So, and that's always a concern, because we don't have the print media like we did. So the mayor's approach kind of takes advantage of that a little bit, I think. It's an off election year. You don't usually get a lot of turnout. And he was able to deploy a team of workers, basically City Hall people and himself, to go get these 1,500 signatures. Well, that's an advantage that a citizen, if I was going out for the Board of Assessors to try and change it, I'd be kind of working on my own, try to get a few friends to help me, but it wouldn't be city people that would be out there doing it for me. So he's got a real advantage in his title and in his resources. And it concerns me that that will be misleading to people who will not question enough that this wasn't taken to task the way it should have been. So I'm glad to see that a study committee is formed, but the study committee got formed at the last Board of Aldermen meeting last Tuesday. So they formed this study committee, but the methods of the committee being formed weren't even clear. It just was there, never voted on. So now there's a committee that's being criticized because the committee is stacked with all people who don't want the change. I don't know if that's true, because I don't know the people individually to know that, but I did write to the board chair of that committee, and I said, please tell me what the alignment is on this committee, because I hope you put some people on this committee that don't support it, that want the charter change, that represent the other side. I want to see some of those people at the table, because when I come out with questions, I want to be able to ask my questions to both sides. And if that side isn't at the table,
that's not fair.
It's not really a great committee. We have trouble with that in this city.
Yes.
The appointments get stacked all one way, and we never have the kind of healthy debate that we should have.
Right.
So, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. What's going on here? You're not even putting them at the table. I mean, you got to start. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that committee goes. But I think Mayor Donchis will be successful in getting 1,500 signatures.
Oh, probably.
You know, and in a low voter turnout, it's so easy. I know very very intelligent people who signed that petition that now are looking at it going, oh,
I've talked to 3 people just in the last Sunday.
and so
that.
what happens is you got to do a lot of talking.
Yeah.
You got to get the word out, and it's not easy to figure out how to get the word out. And also, the police really are not in a position to politic on this. They don't, you know, they can't buy signs. They can't do palm cards or literature. They have no political budget. They can't accept donations. They can't go door to door in uniform with their cruisers. It would send a terrible message of intimidation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they really don't have a means to participate in this political process. So that makes it tough, you know. So I would have preferred a really well-vetted process.
Oh, definitely, but nobody's there to raise it. You got to get somebody to raise it.
That's right. And this working committee is the start, but you know, the working committee says, well, we'll hold ward meetings, which is great. But if the working committee starts in September, the petition gathers enough signatures to be on the ballot. We'll learn in September. You only got 2 months.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of time.
No.
You know, it's that's the problem. So I'm on this assessing standards board group in Concord.
Yeah.
They asked me to join a committee to look at changing the state law so that when assessors are sanctioned, because I brought all those complaints forward to the DRA, they sanctioned, I believe, 3 assessors involved in Nashua work. When they leveled those sanctions, and I definitely had a good idea what was going on, I asked for the actual names and the specific charge. They said, oh, that's confidential. You can't have it. So I was like, oh, you can't get a sanction? You can't get a license removal? No. It was protected under RSA 21J:14. Well, the Assessing Standards Board was shocked. The whole board who helped write these regulations thought that that was not the case. Their reading of the law was sanctions are public business. They should be released. And the DRA said, no, no, no. There's a little caveat here, you know, the interpretation of the law. Our reading is no, they're not. So the Assessing Standards Board was very frustrated. They wanted to change the regulations. They saw what happened down here. One of the board members ran into an issue up in her area where she wanted to get the certification approval that was given to an assessor to determine if they had really done the work to be certified. The DRA said, sorry, we can't show you those records. We can't tell you how they got titled. She was like, well, how do we know if the work was done?
Yeah.
So she got on the bandwagon. So they formed a committee. So their vote was, let's form a committee. Let's work together. Let's discuss changing the law. Let's have them open so other assessors from around the state can give input. And what you found originally, there was some resistance, not a lot, but there were people who had questions. They got to ask all their questions. We got to have discussions. It's been discussed in 2 or 3 meetings. There's 2 more advisory meetings set up in the next month. We're going to write the law to bring, the LSR to put on the table mid-September. And it may take 2 years to get it passed. It might take a couple years, but we're going through a process through committee work to do it.
Good.
Why didn't they do that here?
Yeah.
That's really what some of the aldermen said. Let's do a committee. Let's put it on the ballot when we vote for the mayor in 2 years. Let's spend the time it needs to see how it worked in other communities. And let's slow down the process here and determine if it's where we want to go. And the mayor said no. So, it makes me feel like we don't really know the whole story. We're missing some pieces of this puzzle.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it's...
Well, I wish you the best in that because it's a very logical approach. I mean, you got people in some positions, and if you don't know they're really qualified.
Right.
I mean, how is that?
Oh, for this, well, it was really upsetting to me with assessing because I filed the complaints. I got the sanctions. The city knows what the sanctions are. And we tried to get the city to disclose, and they are hiding behind the state law that requires the DRA to keep it secret. Now, the DRA has said the city can disclose. They're not under 21J. So if the assessors or the word came to them on what the issue was, they can disclose. But the city has said to us, no, we're going to go off of 21J like the DRA uses, and we're not going to give it to you. So the only way I can fight that is to go into court and pay the legal fees.
Yeah.
I'm already up to my eyeballs in it. So, and I might do that pro se. I might take that one on.
Oh, yeah.
But it was really disappointing to me to see that, because I have a big right to know case. And I wanted to be able to say to the judge, there was things that were not right in there. Information and the business of the office in general. And these sanctions got put down.
Yeah.
Well, now they're not disclosed. So I can't use them.
Yeah.
You know, all my hard work to get the sanctions is now hidden. So it seems very unfair.
It does, yeah.
But it'll get changed. I really think eventually it will be changed. The DRA has given a neutral position to say let it go. The DOJ came in, talked to the subcommittee, and then met in non-public with the full board and is given the okay to take this thing forward. Okay. So there is the support there. And hopefully once it gets onto the floor with both bodies, it'll make it through. But it's the only certification where if you lose it, it's the only group that it's not disclosed publicly. You know, licensing for real estate agents or even a hairdresser, you know, dentists, doctors, lawyers, all of that's public, but not for an assessor. It's confidential. So we're gonna get that fixed.
Good. Well, I think you have to go knock on a few doors like the Speaker or the House, the Senate President.
That's right.
Get them on, because I think they're very fair, the two I've worked with.
Yes.
And they might pick that up and help you out.
Yeah, we'll definitely make those connections.
Okay.
You know, when we get to that point.
Yeah.
We're getting there. So,
okay. Well, when
thank
you come back, you know, you can tell us all about your adventures here.
I will.
You got a whole bunch of things going for you.
I do.
I wish you the best in the one for the Public Works. I think that's a good operation there, and I think you'll make it even better.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me on. I love coming here and having a chat with you. It's
That's
always
good.
Fun, and there's always plenty to talk about.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.